The weak cries of 3 newborn boys filled the maternity ward as Maddie Rowe fought to remain conscious. An emergency C-section had left her trembling beneath the fluorescent lights, her heartbeat uneven and her body numb with pain. She had barely seen her sons before nurses rushed them toward the NICU. Through the blur, Maddie searched for her husband. The door opened, but Nicholas Barlow did not enter like a frightened new father. He walked in wearing an immaculate charcoal suit, his phone still glowing with messages from investors. He never looked toward the babies. He barely looked at her. Instead, he placed a stack of documents on the steel table beside her bed. "You need to sign these." Maddie struggled to focus. "Nick, what are they?" "Divorce papers," he replied coldly. "Effective immediately." Her breath caught. Nicholas glanced at his phone as though her devastation were an interruption. "The board is concerned about stability. Triplets were not part of the plan. This complicates the IPO timeline." The words cut deeper than the incision across her abdomen. Maddie could not even lift her arm. The anesthesia had not fully worn off, and only minutes earlier, doctors had been fighting to keep her alive. "You're doing this now?" she whispered. "I almost died." Nicholas did not flinch. "Exactly. We cannot afford more complications. Serena has already prepared the public statement. We'll describe it as a mutual separation. Serena, his PR director, his mistress, and the woman who had been waiting for Maddie's marriage to collapse." Maddie stared at the husband who now spoke about her and their children like liabilities on a balance sheet. But Nicholas had made one devastating mistake. He believed Maddie was too weak to fight back. He had no idea that one of the NICU nurses had overheard everything, or that the medical records, financial documents, and secret messages Serena had tried to bury were about to expose a betrayal powerful enough to destroy his company before the IPO ever began. A nurse gasped quietly in the corner, horrified. Maddie felt her throat close, tears burning her eyes, but refusing to fall. She had no money of her own. Nick controlled every account. She had nowhere to go. And her babies, what would happen to them? "When you're stable, you'll be moved out of the private suite," Nick added. "I've already candled the payment." It was abandonment. Cold, surgical, public. Then Maddie's heart stopped. Nick picked up the pen and forged her signature, and Maddie realized this wasn't just betrayal. This was war. The beeping of the heart monitor steadied into a slow, painful rhythm as Maddie tried to breathe through the tightness in her chest. The room felt colder now, as if Nick's presence had sucked out all remaining warmth. Nurses hurried in and out of the NICU behind the glass panel, their silhouettes blurring as Maddie's vision wavered between dizziness and disbelief. She had just brought 3 children into the world, yet somehow she had never felt more alone. A soft-spoken nurse named Carla stepped closer, her eyes gentle. "Mrs. Barlow, I'm so sorry." Maddie winced at the name Mrs. Barlow, a title that, according to Nick, was already expired. Carla hesitated before adding, "We heard what happened. The doctor wants you monitored for internal bleeding. You need rest, sweetheart. Deep breaths. Rest." Maddie wanted to laugh. How could she rest when her entire life had been torn apart like a sheet of paper? Through the haze of pain, her gaze drifted toward the small windows where her sons lay in their temperature-controlled bassinets. 3 fragile miracles, each only 4 pounds. Fighting for breath, fighting for life. They were so tiny, and they were the only reason she was still holding on. Carla adjusted Maddie's fourth, lowering her voice. "I'll speak plainly. What your husband did, it's cruel. But you need to stay alive for your babies. They need you more than ever." The words pierced deeper than any scalpel. Maddie nodded, even though tears clung stubbornly to her lashes. Minutes passed or hours. Time stretched strangely when your heart was breaking. A hospital administrator entered carrying a clipboard and wearing a tight corporate smile. "Miss Rowe. Sorry, Miss Barlow. There's a billing issue with your suite. Your insurance stopped receiving authorization from your husband's account." "Of course it did. We'll need to transfer you to a standard recovery room. A downgrade. Public. Exposed. The kind of humiliation Nick knew would crush her." "I just had major surgery," Maddie whispered. "My babies are in intensive care. I can't walk. I can barely think. Can't this wait?" The administrator's smile didn't budge. "Unfortunately, no." 2 orderlies appeared with a gurney as if on cue. Maddie's pulse spiked. Her stitches burned. Her stomach twisted with a wave of helplessness she hadn't felt since childhood. Nick hadn't just abandoned her. He'd erased her. When the orderlies rolled her gurney toward the hallway, Carla rushed forward. "Please, She's not stable. Her vitals are fluctuating. She needs higher supervision. But protocol was protocol. Money talked louder than compassion. As the gurney moved past the NICU windows, Maddie reached out with trembling fingers, the tips brushing the glass. "Mommy's here," she whispered. "I'm not leaving you. I promise." A promise she wasn't sure she could keep. The hallway felt endless, bright lights, polished floors, strangers watching a broken woman being wheeled away like an inconvenience. Whispered judgments followed her like shadows. "That's the CEO's wife, right? Didn't she have triplets? Heard she's unstable." Serena's lies were already spreading. The new room was smaller, dimmer, stripped of every comfort. Maddie lay in silence, her body aching, her spirit splintering. The painkillers dulled everything except the fear. How would she protect her sons? How would she survive without money, family, or a home? And how could Nick be so heartless? A faint knock echoed at the door. A man stepped inside, dark coat, silver-rimmed glasses, gentle eyes filled with something she didn't recognize. "Malene Rowe?" he asked quietly. "My name is Dr. Everett Langford. I knew your father." Maddie froze. "There's something you were never told. Something your husband hoped would never reach you. Thank you for watching." For a moment, Maddie wondered if she was hallucinating. Pain, medication, blood loss, exhaustion, anything could have conjured the man now standing at the foot of her narrow hospital bed. But the way he said her name, her real name, cut through the fog, sharper than ice. "I don't understand," she whispered. "You knew my father?" Dr. Everett Langford nodded slowly. His demeanor was calm, almost reverent. "I was one of the physicians who treated him in his final years, but I also worked closely with him on matters related to your family's estate." The word estate twisted something deep inside her chest. A word she had avoided for years, burying it beneath a life she chose carefully, deliberately, anonymously. "My father didn't have anyone at the end," Maddie said, her voice shaking. "Not really. That's not true," Everett replied gently. "He trusted a select few, and he trusted you more than anyone." Her heart clenched. The pain wasn't physical this time. Everett stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Before he passed, he left something for you. He was very specific. It was only to be delivered under 2 circumstances." Maddie swallowed hard. "What circumstances?" "One," Everett said softly, "was if you willingly returned to Roe Vanguard Holdings." She flinched. She had run from that world. Its wealth, its scrutiny, its expectations, all of it. "And the second," she asked. Everett hesitated, sympathy flickering in his eyes. "If someone ever endangered you or your children, the world seemed to tilt under her. How could he possibly predict?" "Your father knew the cost of power," Everett said. "He knew what envy, greed, and ambition can do to people. He worried those forces would eventually reach you." Maddie's throat tightened. She tried pushing herself up, but the pain in her abdomen burned like fire. Everett immediately adjusted her pillows. His hands were steady, warm, nothing like the cold indifference she had just endured from her husband. "How did you even find me?" she asked. "Harold Whitaker contacted me," he replied. "Your family's attorney. He's been trying to reach you for days, but your husband blocked all attempts." A chill spidered across her spine. Nick had hidden messages from her. Why? And what could Whitaker possibly want after all these years? Everett reached into the inner pocket of his coat and withdrew a sealed envelope, thick and weighty, stamped with an embossed silver crest she hadn't seen since she was 17. The Rowe family seal. Her breath caught. I can't. I'm not ready for this." "You don't have to be ready," Everett murmured. "You just have to understand your father didn't leave you powerless. Whatever Nick is trying to do, he vastly misunderstands who he married." But Maddie shook her head. "Nick thinks I'm nobody. He thinks I have nothing." Everett's expression hardened. "That's because he doesn't know who you are." Lightning flashed outside the room's small window, illuminating the edges of the envelope in his hand. "He left you legal protections," Everett continued. "Financial and something more. Something that could change everything. The actions." End quote. Maddie stared at the envelope. Her past, her truth, her inheritance, sitting inches from her trembling hands. "Open it," Everett said softly. Her fingers brushed the seal cold, raised, familiar, and then the door slammed open. A nurse rushed in, face pale. "Malene, your babies, there's been a complication." You need to come now. Maddie's blood turned to ice. The doctors don't think they'll survive the night unless you make a decision immediately. Ander. The fluorescent hallway blurred into streaks of white as nurses rushed Maddie toward the NICU. Every bump of the wheelchair sent a bolt of pain through her abdomen. But she didn't care. Her heart drowned out everything, the monitors, the shouting, even her own breath as she pushed through the ache and terror. What happened? Maddie gasped. Please just tell me. The charge nurse, a stern woman named Dr. Patel, met her at the NICU doors. 2 of your boys' oxygen levels dropped rapidly. The smallest one is struggling to maintain his temperature. We need your immediate consent to move them to ventilators and initiate advanced neonatal support. Consent. Nick should be here, her husband, their father. But she already knew he wouldn't answer the phone. Not tonight. Not ever again. Do whatever you have to do, she whispered. Save them. Dr. Patel nodded and signaled the team. Machines hummed to life, tubes and monitors winding around her fragile sons. Their tiny chests rose and fell unevenly, each breath a battle. Maddie's fingers pressed against the glass, her voice trembling. Mommy's here. Keep fighting, baby boys. I'm right here. Everett stood a respectful distance behind her, hands clasped tightly. He looked at the babies with a quiet heaviness. They're strong, he said softly. Stronger than you think. Roe blood doesn't give up easy. But Maddie barely heard him. Her entire world had shrunk to 3 tiny bodies covered in wires. A nurse approached. We need a signature for the treatment authorization. She hesitated. Your husband declined to sign earlier this evening. Maddie froze. Nick refused. The nurse continued gently. But you can sign now. You're their mother. That's enough. Her mother. Enough. Words she desperately needed to hear. With shaking hands, Maddie scribbled her name on the clipboard. The moment the pen left the paper, something inside her shifted a quiet but unmistakable resolve. If Nick wanted war, she would fight with everything she had. Hours blurred. Nurses moved like ghosts. Machines beeped sharply. The smallest baby, Baby C, struggled the hardest. His breath shallow and irregular. Maddie prayed silently, gripping the railing of her bed until her knuckles whitened. Everett eventually placed a cup of warm water at her side. You need strength, too. She shook her head. They come first. Your father said the same words once, he murmured. He fought for you with everything he had. Tears finally broke free, rolling silently down her cheeks. I wish he were here. He is, Everett said, tapping the envelope still tucked in his coat. Not in the way you want, but in the way you need. Before she could respond, an alarm shrilled through the NICU. Baby C's oxygen plummeted. Nurses rushed in, adjusting lines, repositioning the tiny bundle, calling out vitals. Maddie felt her heart tear in 2. Please, she whispered. Please don't take him from me. Dr. Patel turned, urgency in her tone. We need to increase respiratory support immediately. Will he make it? Maddie choked out. Patel didn't answer. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, Baby C's oxygen stabilized barely, but enough for the team to step back. Maddie sagged in relief, tears dripping onto her gown. But the reprieve didn't last. A hospital security guard appeared at the doorway, radio clipped to his shoulder. Miss Rowe, he called. Maddie turned confused. Yes. The guard stiffened. Ma'am, you need to come with me. Your husband has filed an emergency petition. Her heart stopped. He's requesting full custody of all 3 infants and an immediate restraining order against you. Maddie's breath caught as the security guard's words echoed in the sterile hallway. An emergency custody petition. A restraining order against her. The mother who almost died bringing these children into the world. Her legs threatened to give out, but Everett caught her elbow gently. Easy. You're still recovering. How? Maddie's voice cracked. How could Nick do this? I haven't left their side for a second. Everett's jaw tightened. Because he's trying to erase you before the truth reaches him. The guard stepped forward, awkwardly sympathetic. Ma'am, I don't want to upset you. I'm just following procedure. Mr. Barlow is downstairs with his attorney. They're demanding immediate removal of the infants into temporary protective custody until the court hearing tomorrow. Temporary custody? Protective custody? As if she were the danger? No, Maddie whispered. No, absolutely not. She pushed herself up from the wheelchair, pain radiating through her abdomen. Still, she forced herself to stand tall even as her vision swam. I'm going downstairs, she said. Take me to him. Everett nodded. I'm going with you. The elevator ride down felt like plummeting through time. Each ding of the passing floors pushed another shard of fear into her chest. Everett stood beside her like a silent sentry, his expression unreadable but fierce. When the doors opened into the lobby, flashes erupted instantly. Camera flashes, dozens of them. Reporters rushed forward, microphones outstretched, voices overlapping like thunder. Mrs. Barlow, is it true you're mentally unstable? Sources say you endangered your newborn's care to comment. Are you being removed from the hospital for violent behavior? Maddie froze. Serena. This had Serena's fingerprints all over it. And then she spotted him. Nick, standing near the security desk in a tailored suit, tie perfect, hair immaculate, posture performance ready. At his side, Serena Vale in a beige designer coat, lips glossed and smirking slightly as if she were attending a red carpet premiere. Nick didn't look at Maddie like she was the mother of his children. He looked at her like she was a problem he'd already solved. Malene, he said smoothly, loud enough for every nearby camera. Given your emotional instability after the birth, my legal counsel advised emergency custody measures. It's for the children's safety. Her mouth fell open. You weren't even here when they were crashing in the NICU. Nick raised a hand, silencing her. You're not well. You're exhausted, delusional, and frankly, this isn't the place for a scene. Serena stepped closer, voice dripping with fake sympathy. We're only trying to help you, sweetheart. You should just rest. Maddie felt something inside her snap. Not a scream, not a sob, but a quiet, deadly resolve. You forged my signature, she said calmly, voice steadying. That's a crime, Nick. End quote. Murmurs rippled through the reporters. Nick's jaw tightened for the first time. You have no proof, he said. Everett stepped forward, adjusting his coat. Actually, she does. Nick blinked. Who are you? I'm Dr. Everett Langford, he said. And I was entrusted with documentation your wife's father left behind. Documentation that concerns her legal status, her inheritance. The lobby fell silent. Even Serena stiffened. And her authority, Everett continued, over assets you depend on. Nick's confidence cracked. What authority? He demanded. Everett slid a hand into his coat. Maddie's heart pounded. Reporters leaned in. Security froze. Nick swallowed. Everett pulled out the envelope, the kind that can end your company by sunrise. Chaos erupted the moment Everett spoke. Reporters surged forward. Cameras clicked in rapid bursts, and the hospital lobby transformed into a battlefield of flashing lights and frantic whispers. Nick's controlled expression faltered for the first time, a crack forming in the polished facade he'd crafted so carefully. What are you talking about? Nick snapped, stepping closer. What authority could she possibly have over my company? Everett didn't flinch. Roe Vanguard Holdings has held controlling interest in Barlow Genomics for the past 7 years. Your father-in-law arranged the investment through a blind trust before his death. Several reporters gasped. Even Serena went pale. Nick barked a humorless laugh. That's impossible. Maddie doesn't have access to a single trust fund. I made sure of that. And there it was, the slip, the admission. Maddie met his eyes, and for the first time she didn't see a husband. She saw a stranger, a man who had married her not for love, but for convenience, for silence, for control. You blocked my attorney's calls, Maddie said quietly. You knew my inheritance was active. This year, you were never supposed to open that door. You were supposed to stay out of the way. Serena tugged at his sleeve. Nick, maybe we should continue this privately. But he jerked away. No, she needs to hear this. She was nothing until I gave her a life, a home, a purpose. End quote. Maddie felt the words like knives, but instead of cutting her down, they carved something new inside her, a strength she had buried long ago, a strength she inherited. Everett stepped protectively beside her. Your wife, he said, owned 37% of your company, and if she executes the documents her father left, she will own all of it. Cameras erupted again. Nick stared at Everett, then at the envelope as if it were a ticking bomb. That envelope, Nick hissed, belongs to me. It concerns my company. It concerns her life, Everett corrected. Her security, her children. At the mention of the babies, Maddie felt her breath hitch. Her sons helpless, fighting for every breath. While their father waged war downstairs, she steadied herself. I'm going back to the NICU. They need me. But when she turned, security stepped into her path. "Ma'am," the guard said nervously, "we just received updated orders. Mr. Barlow filed a secondary emergency injunction. Until the court reviews the situation," Maddie clutched the railing of her wheelchair. "Don't say it." The guard swallowed hard. "You're temporarily barred from entering the NICU." The floor seemed to fall away beneath her. "No." Her voice fractured, raw, desperate. "My sons are in critical condition. They need me. I need them." "I'm sorry," the guard whispered. It came directly from the judge's office. Nick folded his arms. "See? You're too emotional to make decisions. It's better this way." "Better for who?" Maddie felt something inside her shatter so completely that the pieces reformed into steel. "I won't let you take them," she whispered. Nick smirked. "You already have by proving me right." Everett leaned down, voice low. "Urgent eyeline. Open the envelope. Right now, it's time." Her fingers trembled as she reached for it, but before she could break the seal, a voice echoed across the lobby. "Malene Rowe, step away from him." If everyone turned, a tall, gay-haired man in a tailored navy suit strode forward, flanked by 2 assistants carrying briefcases embossed with a symbol she hadn't seen in years. "Rowe Vanguard Holdings. I'm Harold Whitaker," he announced, "and I'm here to remove Nicholas Barlow from every position of power he ever thought he owned." The lobby fell into stunned silence as Harold Whitaker stepped forward, the air shifting as if someone had opened a door into another world. Her world. The world Maddie ran from, the world Nick had no idea he had trespassed into. Harold gave Maddie a small, respectful nod. "Miss Rowe, I came as soon as I received word of your situation." Nick scoffed. "Miss Rowe, her last name is Barlow, and whoever you are, you have no authority here." Harold turned, gaze cool and precise. "I am the executive of the Rowe estate, which I should add owns controlling interest in Barlow Genomics, your company." A ripple of shock spread through the reporters. Nick's face drained of color. "That's absurd," he snapped. "Her father didn't leave anything. The man was bankrupt." Harold's eyes hardened. "Rowe Vanguard Holdings has never been bankrupt a single day in its 70-year history. Your ignorance is expected, but unfortunate." He opened his briefcase. 2 assistants pulled out thick binders embossed with the silver crest Maddie once swore she'd never see again. She felt her stomach twist. This was the life she hid, the life she denied. And now it was unfolding in a hospital lobby under fluorescent lights and camera flashes. Harold continued. "Your father-in-law invested in your company under the condition that the rights to all Rowe shares would transfer to Miss Rowe upon her 30th birthday unless she chose to decline them." Nick blinked. "That makes no sense. Maddie doesn't know anything about investments. She chose anonymity." Harold corrected sharply. "She never chose ignorance." Maddie's throat tightened. Harold always had a way of cutting straight through pretense. Everett stepped beside her. "Tell him the rest, Harold." Harold snapped open a leather folder. "Very well. Effective immediately. Miss Rowe holds the authority to dissolve Barlow Genomics, freeze its accounts, or restructure the board of directors, including—" He paused, letting the words land, "terminating the acting CEO." Gasps erupted. Nick stumbled a step backward as if struck. "You can't fire me from my own company, Eastie." "It has never been your company," Harold replied. "It was Roro funded, Roro backed, and now Roro owned." Serena grabbed Nick's arm, whispering frantically, "Nick, we need to leave right now." But Nick shrugged her off. "No, I'm not giving up everything because of her little identity stunt." Maddie felt the weight of all eyes on her. She had wanted truth, not power, protection, not revenge. But the sight of Nick rolling his shoulders, preparing to fight her again, lit something fierce inside her. "You tried to take my children," she said softly. "You let me suffer alone after surgery. You spread lies about me, and you forged my signature." Nick's mask cracked because you can't handle reality. "You're weak, Maddie. You always were." Maddie straightened. She didn't feel weak. She felt awake. Harold turned to her. "Miss Rowe, all you need is a single verbal directive." End quote. End quote. Nick shook his head violently. "Maddie, don't think about the babies. Think about—" But she'd already made her choice. Her voice was steady, clear, devastating. "Remove Nicholas Barlow from all executive positions." Effective immediately, reporters exploded with questions. Serena looked like the ground had vanished beneath her feet. Nick opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Then the elevator dinged behind them. A nurse rushed out, breathless. "Miss Rowe, your baby's condition has changed again. The doctors need you upstairs." Maddie felt her heart stop. They said, "You must decide which one to operate on first." The elevator doors slid open with a metallic groan, and the moment Maddie crossed back into the NICU floor, every instinct inside her screamed. The atmosphere had changed, sharper, heavier, electrified by urgency. Nurses moved quickly, their movements brisk but controlled. A choreography born of crisis. Dr. Patel approached her immediately. "Madeline, thank God you're here." Her usually calm voice carried an edge of fear. "All 3 babies are struggling, but baby C is the most critical. We need surgical intervention, but his brothers are beginning to show signs of respiratory collapse as well." Maddie's lungs tightened. I don't understand. Why do I have to choose?" Patel exhaled. "We only have one available neonatal surgical team tonight. The second team is stuck across town on an emergency case. If we wait for them, we risk losing all 3. We need your consent to operate on one baby first." "One first?" "Not all. Just one." It felt like the cruelest decision a mother could ever face. Her legs buckled and she reached for the wall, breath trembling. "How can I choose which child gets to live?" Everett steadied her, his hand firm on her shoulder. "You're not choosing who lives. You're choosing the one whose condition demands immediate action." Dr. Patel nodded. "Baby C's oxygen saturation has been dropping for the past hour. We've stabilized him temporarily, but it won't hold." Maddie blinked through the tears, clouding her vision, and looked into the NICU through the glass wall. 3 tiny bodies, 3 tiny hearts, 3 little miracles who had barely met the world but were already fighting for their place in it. "What are their chances?" she whispered. Patel hesitated. "Baby C has the highest risk without immediate surgery. Baby A and B may hold on slightly longer, but they'll also require intervention within the hour. So little time, so much fear. I don't want to lose any of them," she said, voice breaking. Everett crouched beside her, eyes steady. "Then we fight for all of them, one step at a time. Start where the need is greatest." The gastral. Maddie pressed her forehead to the cool glass, her hand trembling as she touched the barrier between them. "Baby C," she whispered. "He's always been my smallest fighter." Patel nodded. "Well, prep the oar immediately." But as she turned away, another nurse rushed forward, panic flashing across her face. "Dr. Patel, baby A's vitals are dropping again. He's showing signs of pulmonary distress." Maddie's heart dropped. No, please." Patel looked torn. "Both C and A need surgery within minutes." "What if we move A first?" a nurse suggested. Patel shook her head. "His lungs might not hold long enough through anesthesia. C is the safer surgical candidate, but A," her voice trailed off, the horrible weight of uncertainty filling the space between them. Maddie felt like the room was spinning. She couldn't breathe. "Tell me the truth." "We'll choosing C, dumb." Patel's silence was answer enough. Everett placed both hands gently on her arms. "Malene, listen to me. Your father didn't raise anyone weak. You make decisions based on courage, not fear." But courage felt distant, impossible. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she whispered, "Take baby C first." Patel nodded sharply and moved fast, her team mobilizing around her. A wheelchair was pushed behind Maddie so she could be moved closer to watch through the O window. She allowed them to guide her until she saw something that made her blood freeze. At the far end of the hallway, Nick stood with Serena beside him, whispering to the hospital administrator. The administrator pointed toward the NICU. Everett followed her gaze. "What is he doing up here?" The administrator turned toward Maddie. "And then, Mrs. Barlow, your husband just submitted a directive to halt all surgical procedures until custody is resolved." For a moment, Maddie couldn't process what she'd just heard. The world narrowed into a single echoing sentence. Your husband submitted a directive to halt all surgical procedures. Her babies, her fragile, fighting newborns were running out of time. Yet Nick, the man who had abandoned her mere minutes after giving birth, now wanted to pause their life-saving treatment for a custody advantage. "Doctor," Patel was the first to react. "This is medical interference. We can't delay. These infants need immediate stabilizing measures." End quote. But the administrator shook his head nervously. "Mr. Barlow is still listed as primary insurer and joint guardian. Legally, his order has weight until the court clarifies custody. He's not doing this for the babies, Maddie cried. He's doing this to hurt me. The administrator looked pained, but bureaucracy held him captive. Everett stepped forward like a storm gathering force. This is not only unethical, it's criminally negligent, and it violates the emergency authority Miss Rowe holds as the surviving beneficiary of the Rowe Trust. Nick strode toward them, Serena gliding beside him like a shadow. You don't have the right to make medical decisions, he snapped. You're unstable. You've cried in every hallway since giving birth. Maddie stared at him incredulous. Because our babies might die, Nick. Serena's smirk sharpened. Which is exactly why the court should know she's not fit. Is fruit. Everett's voice dropped to a dangerous calm. Nicholas Barlow, you're interfering with emergency care for infants in crisis. One call to the medical board and your career is over. Nick scoffed. You think you scare me? You're nobody. Harold Whitaker appeared then, stepping out of the elevator, his expression carved from steel. He is the legal executive of the estate that owns your company, Mr. Barlow, and you are seconds away from losing every shred of power you believe you have. If you have a Nick faltered, but only for a heartbeat. My lawyers will bury all of you, he hissed, especially her. Something inside Maddie cracked open, not in weakness, but in fury. Fury born from fear, exhaustion, and the primal instinct to protect her children. She stepped toward Nick, voice trembling but fierce. You've lied about me, humiliated me, abandoned me, but this is unforgivable. You are trying to stop them from surviving. Nick shrugged, heartless. It's strategic. Strategic? Her vision blurred. Not from pain, but from something sharper. Harold placed a hand gently on her shoulder. Miss Rowe, there is a legal solution. She turned desperate. Tell me. You can override him, Harold said, but only if you activate full inheritance rights. Once you do, his authority as joint guardian will be revoked until the investigation completes. Maddie's stomach twisted. Activating her inheritance meant stepping into the world she'd avoided for a decade. Rowe Vanguard, the press, the scrutiny, the responsibility. It meant becoming someone she wasn't sure she could be. Everett knelt beside her. Malene, this is what your father wanted. He knew one day you'd need this strength. Her eyes drifted toward the NICU. 3 tiny bodies, wires, machines beeping in unstable rhythms. There was no choice. Her voice steadied. What do I have to say? Harold opened the leather folder. State your full name and declare your acceptance of the Rowe inheritance and all governing authority. Nick's eyes widened. Maddie, don't you dare. She lifted her chin, tears trembling but unfallen. My name is Malene Rowe, she breathed, and I accept. Suddenly, alarms blared inside the NICU. Nurses screamed, rushing toward baby A's incubator. Dr. Patel shouted, He's crashing. We're losing him. Maddie's heart splintered. Finish your declaration now if you want us to legally touch your babies, Harold urged. The alarms screamed like sirens tearing through Maddie's soul. Nurses sprinted toward baby A's incubator, voices layered with urgency and panic. His tiny chest struggled, rising only halfway before collapsing again. The monitor flashed red numbers, dangerously low oxygen saturation. Malene, you must finish, Harold urged, voice firm but shaken. Legally, we cannot intervene without your authority. Is a commisstat. Her knees buckled, the world spun. Her baby, her firstborn by only seconds, was fading in front of her, but time was a luxury she no longer had. Every breath he fought for sharpened her resolve. Nick stepped closer, desperation twisting his features. Maddie, listen to me. If you do this, you lose any chance of reconciliation. You lose your marriage, your financial safety, everything. She looked at him, really looked at him, the man who walked out on her minutes after she gave birth, the man who forged her signature, the man who tried to block life-saving surgery for his own children. There was nothing left to lose except them. Her voice trembled but did not break. My name is Malene Elise Rowe. Nick lunged forward. Stop. Security restrained him instantly. She continued, stronger this time, and I fully accept all inheritance rights and full governing authority over Rowe Vanguard Holdings. Tetrain instensive in any. The moment the words left her lips, Harold snapped his fingers to his assistants. Legal pads were thrust forward, documents unfolded, signatures pre-marked. Everything activated at once with the precision of a well-designed operation. "It is done," Harold confirmed. "Authority transferred. Effective immediately." The hospital administrator exhaled with relief. "Then the injunction is void. Surgical intervention is authorized." Dr. Patel didn't waste a second. "Prep the ore now, Ezer." The team surged into motion. Machines rolled. Incubators were unlocked. 2 surgeons arrived at a sprint. Maddie pressed her hand to the glass, whispering a prayer only her babies could hear. Everett leaned down. "You saved them. Your father would be proud." But saving them was only the beginning. Nick thrashed against security, shouting, "You think this changes anything? I will fight you in court. I will ruin you. You stole my company." Harold's calm voice cut through his rage like steel. "The only one who ruined Nicholas Barlow is Nicholas Barlow." He handed Nick a single sheet of paper. Nick froze. It was his termination notice signed by Maddie. "No," Nick whispered. "No, this isn't happening. You are hereby removed from all executive roles," Harold recited. "Your access to company systems, facilities, and accounts is revoked. Security will escort you out of all Barlow Genomics properties within the hour." Nick's expression collapsed into something hollow. Stunned, Serena stepped back from him instinctively, calculating her next move. Maddie turned to Dr. Patel. "Take baby A first. Please don't let him slip away." Patel nodded and rushed the tiny bundle into the O. Maddie sagged into the wheelchair, shaking so hard her teeth clicked. Everett knelt beside her, his voice soft but steady. "Breathe. You've done everything you could." Tears slid down her cheeks, silent and unstoppable. "I'm terrified." "I know," Everett whispered. "But you're not alone anymore." Before she could answer, the O doors opened. A surgeon approached, mask still on, eyes grim. Maddie's heart plummeted. "Is he?" She choked. The surgeon hesitated. "We stabilized baby A." But something unexpected happened during the procedure. Maddie's fingers tightened around the armrests. "What happened?" The surgeon looked between Everett and Harold, then back at her. "We discovered a condition that didn't come from you, but from the father." The surgeon's eyes softened behind his mask as he stepped closer. "Mrs. Rowe, baby A's collapse wasn't random. We discovered a genetic marker during the procedure, something we need to discuss immediately." Maddie's stomach twisted painfully. "A genetic marker? What does that mean? Is he going to survive?" "He's stable for now," the surgeon said carefully. "But the marker we found indicates a hereditary cardiac condition. It requires long-term monitoring." "Her breath caught from me, or it's paternal," the surgeon said. The world froze. "Nick." Of course it was Nick. Everett's jaw tightened. "What condition?" "Barlow syndrome," the surgeon answered. "It's rare, but every male Barlow descendant for 4 generations carries it. It should have been disclosed in your prenatal forms." Maddie's pulse spiked. She remembered those forms clearly. She'd begged Nick to fill out the paternal medical history section because she didn't know his family's conditions. He'd brushed her off, calling it paperwork for paranoid people. "Is it dangerous?" she whispered. The surgeon sighed. "It can be, but early intervention gives the best prognosis. The issue is baby A wasn't monitored for it because no one informed us." A wave of hot fury surged through her. Nick had lied about their medical history again. His negligence had nearly killed their child. Everett placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Focus on the boys. We'll deal with Nick later." But the universe, it seemed, was done waiting because at that exact moment, Nick barged down the hallway, still red-faced from being terminated downstairs. "What did you just tell her?" Nick barked at the surgeon. "Anything involving my children needs my consent." The surgeon straightened. "Sir, medical negligence on your part nearly cost this child his life. You withheld a serious hereditary condition." "Watch your tone," Nick snapped. "My medical history is private." "Your son's almost died," Maddie hissed. "And you care about privacy." Nick's eyes narrowed. "You don't get to lecture me. You sign nothing. You own nothing." Harold stepped forward like a blade. "Incorrect. Mrs. Rowe owns all shares of Barlow Genomics and now holds full guardianship pending legal confirmation. And if her lawyer files a medical neglect claim, you will face criminal charges." Nick turned pale. "You wouldn't?" Maddie didn't blink. "I would and I will." Nurses rushed past them toward Baby B's station, alarms beeping. Maddie's heart lurched. "What's happening now?" The surgeon motioned her over. Baby B is declining faster than expected. He'll need respiratory support. Upgraded urgently. Another crisis. Another blow. Another reminder that her sons were fighting battles they never asked for. She pressed her hand to the glass. Hang on, sweet boy. Mommy's right here. Nick stepped closer, lowering his voice. Look, Maddie, maybe we can work something out. You give me half the company back, and I'll help you with the boys' treatments. Her head snapped toward him. You're bargaining with me? While our children struggle to breathe, they're my children too, Nick snapped. For the first time today, she said coldly. You're right. His expression softened slightly, hopeful. But then she added, and that means your medical neglect is fully documented. His face collapsed. Harold's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his expression shifted from stern to electrified. Malene, he said, voice tightening. You need to hear this. It's about the Roe Vanguard board. Maddie wiped her tears. What now? Harold met her eyes. They're demanding your immediate appearance. They say your father left. A second envelope. The hum of hospital machines faded into the background as Harold's words sank in. A second envelope. Another secret her father had left behind. One powerful enough that the Roe Vanguard board demanded her immediate presence. I can't leave, Maddie whispered. My sons are fighting for their lives. As for it, I understand, Harold said gently, but the board is threatening to invalidate your inheritance if you don't appear in person. They claim the envelope contains directives that legally override everything we've done today. Maddie's heart twisted. Override as in reverse it. Harold hesitated. Potentially. Panic surged through her. She had just secured guardianship, stopped Nick's obstruction, and saved the baby's right to treatment. If the inheritance was challenged now, she could lose everything. Her authority, her protection, her leverage. They can't do this to her right now. Everett snapped. She's postpartum. She's medically unstable. Harold exhaled. They don't care about her condition. They care about succession control. The heirs of Roe aren't just people. They're institutions. Maddie felt the weight of a legacy she never asked for settle across her shoulders like cold iron. Before she could answer, alarms shrieked again, this time from baby C's monitor. Nurses hurried to stabilize him, calling out oxygen levels. The tiny boy who had clung to life since the moment he entered the world was fighting a new battle. Tears filled her eyes. I can't leave them. Not for a minute. Everett stepped closer. Then I'll go in your place. Harold shook his head. They won't allow a proxy. They want direct confirmation from the heir. I have compress. Nick approached then, his voice low, brittle. So Daddy left you another checkbook. Another pile of power you never earned. Maddie turned on him, exhausted, but fierce. You may not care whether our children live or die, but I do. And whatever is in that envelope, my father meant it for me. Nick sneered. Your father also meant for you to run a billion-dollar empire, but you lasted 3 years before running away like a coward. It was a low blow. It worked. Memories sliced through her press conferences at 17, board meetings at 18, investors gawking at her like she was a prodigy or a trophy. She had suffocated under the expectations of a dynasty, a legacy with claws. That was why she ran, why she hid, why she married Nick. She wanted a life where she mattered for herself. But now hiding was no longer an option. Harold cleared his throat. The board meeting is virtual. You don't need to leave the hospital, but you must join within the next 20 minutes. 20 minutes. While her baby struggled to breathe, Maddie wiped her tears. Fine. Start it. Harold opened his laptop, connecting to a secure channel. The Roe crest shimmered on screen before giving way to a grid of stern, powerful faces, men and women who had shaped the American financial landscape. Miss Roe, the chairwoman said, her voice clipped. We've convened to address your unexpected activation of inheritance rights. Reicher. Unexpected? Maddie echoed. My children were dying. I had no choice. Emotion cannot dictate corporate power. Another board member snapped. Everett muttered. Unbelievable. The chairwoman continued. Before your father died, he left a second envelope with explicit instructions. We are obligated to follow it. Open it now. Harold slid the envelope into her trembling hands. Her name was written across the front in her father's handwriting. Her throat closed. She broke the seal. Inside was one sentence, just one written in bold ink. If my daughter is ever threatened, Activate Protocol Orion. Maddie looked up. What is Protocol Orion? The board exchanged uneasy glances. The chairwoman's voice lowered. It means your father gave you control over assets that can end far more than Nicholas Barlow's career. The boardroom faces on the laptop shifted uneasily, an unmistakable ripple of fear threading through their expressions. Maddie looked from face to face, searching for clarity. Something concrete. Anything that could explain the weight behind those two words. Protocol Orion, the chairwoman repeated, enunciating carefully, is a contingency your father created during the final decade of his life. A failsafe designed to activate only under the gravest threats to the Rowe lineage. Maddie frowned. Graves threats. I'm a mother with 3 premature infants in the NICU. My life is falling apart. What threat are you talking about? Harold cleared his throat gently. Miss Rowe, your father anticipated that if anyone ever tried to control, manipulate, or endanger you, especially through marriage, Orion would be unlocked. Nick, who had been hovering outside the glass wall of the NICU, scoffed loudly. You people are insane. You're talking like she's royalty. The chairwoman stared him down with icy disdain. Your wife is the direct heir to a multi-billion-dollar financial dynasty. You should have taken your vows more seriously. Nick's jaw tightened. Everett stepped closer to Maddie, speaking quietly. Your father didn't place Orion lightly. Whatever it contains, it's big. Maddie turned back to the board. Explain what it does. A bearded board member leaned forward. When activated, Protocol Orion gives you full authority to dissolve or commandeer any entity directly or indirectly funded by RO assets. This includes companies, partnerships, shell corporations, and political PACs, Harold added. And Barlow Genomics falls under 3 different categories. Nick paused. Maddie blinked, stunned. You mean I could shut down his entire empire? You already have that authority, the chairwoman said. But Orion gives you something far more powerful. The room went silent for a heavy beat. It gives you the right, the chairwoman continued, to seize all controlling shares held by compromised executives without negotiation. Nick lunged into view. That's theft. That's fraud. No, Harold corrected coldly. It's law. Your father drafted Orion with Congress oversight during a restructuring of national biotech infrastructure. Maddie stared at the envelope, the single sentence burning into her mind. But why would he leave something like this to me? Everett's voice softened. Because he knew someday you'd be blindsided by someone pretending to love you. Nick bristled at the implication. Don't act like she's innocent. She lied about who she was. No, Maddie said quietly. I hid who I was because I wanted a real marriage, not a merger, the board murmured approvingly. The chairwoman spoke again. Miss Rowe, do you wish to activate Protocol Orion? Maddie looked through the NICU window at her baby's tiny, fragile warriors, tethered to life by whirring machines. Everything she had done today was for them. Every fear she swallowed, every truth she confronted, every piece of strength she rediscovered, she faced the board. If I activate it, what happens next? Harold answered. Every entity tied to Rowe assets immediately falls under your control, and Nicholas Barlow loses all his shares forever. Serena, who had been trying to blend into the background, gasped. Nick, your entire net worth. Shut up. Nick snapped. Maddie felt the shift inside her, the final crack where heartbreak was replaced by something sharp, something resolute. She had begged for mercy, prayed for peace, but now she understood. Peace required power, and for the first time she wasn't afraid of holding it. She inhaled slowly. Yes, I want to activate Orion. Harold nodded gravely, then say the words. Maddie lifted her chin, voice steady. I, Melina Elise Rowe, heir to the Rowe Vanguard legacy, officially activate. A sudden shriek cut through the NICU. Baby B's monitor spiked violently. Dr. Patel ran toward him. His lung collapsed, she shouted. He's going into respiratory failure. Maddie lurched forward, heart fracturing anew. Patel turned sharply. If you want him to survive, we need immediate permission to perform an experimental procedure right now. And there is Zaha. The words experimental procedure stabbed through Maddie like ice. Her breath vanished, replaced with a sharp ache in her chest as she staggered to the NICU glass. Baby B, her second-born, her sweet boy, lay limp under the fluorescent glow, his tiny body barely rising with each attempted breath. Nurses surrounded him, hands moving fast, voices urgent. Dr. Patel spun toward Maddie, eyes fierce with determination. We don't have minutes, we have seconds. His lung has collapsed completely. We can attempt a standard intervention, but the probability of survival is under 15%. Maddie's vision blurred. And the experimental option, it's a microsurgical patch developed in clinical trials, Patel said. It has a significantly higher chance of stabilizing him, but it hasn't been FDA cleared for infants this premature. Nick stepped forward instantly. Absolutely not. We are not signing off on some science experiment. Maddie's head snapped toward him. We? You lost your authority? Nick smirked. Maybe over your life, but not over the boys. Not yet. Harold lifted his tablet. Actually, Protocol Orion. No! Patel barked louder than anyone expected. This isn't about corporate authority. This is about saving a child who is dying right now. Nick folded his arms. Then do the standard procedure. Maddie felt the room tilt. That gives him a 15% chance. Patel's expression softened, but didn't waver. Malene, the choice is yours. But you need to make it now. Baby B's monitor shrieked again, the red numbers spiking downward. Maddie pressed her hand against the glass, tears falling freely. My baby, please hold on. Everett's voice came from beside her, steady and grounded. Malene, look at me. She turned, trembling. You've survived the unthinkable today, he whispered. You've protected them in every way a mother could, and right now you don't need perfection. You need courage. I guessed. She inhaled shakily. I'm so scared, Everett. I know, he said softly. But fear has never stopped you. Nick scoffed loudly. Of course, she's scared. She's not rational. She's postpartum, emotional, naive. That did it. A fire sparked inside her chest. One born of heartbreak, exhaustion, maternal instinct, and a rage that had grown sharper. With every lie, every betrayal, every moment of danger he put her children in, she turned on him with a calmness that frightened even Serena. You tried to kill him? Maddie whispered. Nick blinked. What? By refusing to disclose your family's medical condition, by blocking surgeries, by filing injunctions while he fought to breathe. You did this. Nick froze because everyone around him knew she was right. Harold stepped closer. Mrs. Rowe Orion is active. You now hold unilateral authority. Make your decision. Maddie turned back to Dr. Patel, wiping her cheeks. Use the experimental procedure. Save my son. And what? Patel didn't hesitate. She snapped orders, her team moving like a synchronized machine. Baby B was rushed past them on a rolling incubator. Wires swaying, alarms still blaring. Nick surged forward. You'll regret this. If he dies, Maddie cut him off, her voice still. If he dies, the only person responsible will be the father who put him in danger. For the first time, Nick looked afraid. Everett pushed Maddie's wheelchair closer to the viewing window outside the O. She gripped the armrests tightly as Baby B disappeared behind the surgical doors. Harold checked his watch. Miss Rowe, the protocol activation isn't complete until you finish the declaration from earlier. Maddie swallowed hard. I'll do it after the surgery. Harold shook his head. No. If anything happens in that operating room, you could lose legal control instantly. You must finish now. Her heart hammered violently. Baby B was somewhere behind those doors. Baby A and C were fighting in the NICU. Her whole world was collapsing and rebuilding at the same time. She closed her eyes. Everett squeezed her hand. You can do this. She opened them again. Steadier, clearer. Fine, she whispered. Let me finish it. Then behind the O-glass, the surgical lights flickered. A nurse sprinted toward Patel, panic on her face. Something was wrong. Patel's voice rose sharply. We're losing him again. In of her. The surgical lights flickered again, casting fractured shadows across the O window. Maddie pressed both palms against the glass, her breath fogging the surface as she searched for any sign, any movement that Baby B was still fighting. Nurses swarmed around the tiny operating table, their voices urgent but controlled. Inside, Dr. Patel barked orders. Increase microventilation support. We need better visualization now. A trembling nurse turned to her. His vitals are unstable. The anesthesia is hitting him harder than expected. Maddie's heart shattered. He's too tiny. Please don't let him slip away. Everett moved beside her, steady as a pillar, even though his expression betrayed his fear. He's got your strength, Malene. Hold on to that. She wanted to God. She wanted to. But the monitor inside the O flashed another warning. Red, sharp, unforgiving. Patel's voice rose again. His pressure is dropping. Insert the micropatch. Tuzachiva. Another nurse lifted a delicate piece of surgical mesh, no bigger than a fingernail. The fragility of it terrified Maddie. That little scrap of medical engineering was the only thing standing between her son and death. Harold checked his watch again, tension carving lines across his forehead. Miss Rowe, the board is still waiting. You must finish the declaration. I can't, she whispered. Not while he's— If you delay, Harold warned softly. Custody challenges could reopen. Nick could regain leverage. This is precisely the type of moment your father designed Protocol Orion for. Maddie looked through the glass again. Machine's word. Hands moved. Her baby's life hung in the balance. She swallowed hard. Fine. Quickly. Harold opened the document. Repeat after me. I, Melina Lise Rao. A sudden choking beep interrupted him. Maddie's knees buckled. What was that? Patel shouted inside. Cardiac arrhythmia. Prep the epi, hurry, and hope her for it. No, Maddie whispered. No, please. Everett caught her before she collapsed. Look at me. You can do this. You have to. Harold waited, eyes steady, compassionate but unyielding. Maddie inhaled shakily, forcing her voice to stay steady. I, Melina Lise Rowe, activate protocol. Oren, assuming full guardianship and corporate authority. Harold nodded once, hands moving fast across his tablet. It's official. The board recognizes your authority. Nicholas Barlow has no legal standing from this moment on. Nick, who had been pacing behind security, snapped. You can't do this to me. You did this to yourself, Harold replied without looking at him, but Maddie barely heard them. Her focus remained on the O. Patel, placed the micropatch carefully over baby B's damaged lung. Hold suction. Keep him stable. Don't lose rhythm, a nurse called out. Heart rate steadying barely. Seal it, Patel commanded. Now is a better. The lights flickered once more, then stabilized. Patel stepped back slowly, shoulders sagging. A long silence. A horrible, endless silence. Then one monitor beeped. Then again, a softer rhythm, faint but present. Patel turned toward the window, lifting her mask just enough for Maddie to read her lips. He made it. Maddie collapsed into the chair behind her, sobbing into her hands. Everett wrapped an arm around her shoulders, grounding her as relief washed through her trembling frame. But before she could take another breath, another alarm shrieked from the NICU. Nurses sprinted toward baby C's station. Dr. Patel rushed out of the O, still gloved, voice ringing through the corridor. Maline baby C is not responding to treatment. His oxygen levels are crashing. Maddie staggered back to her feet, heart hammering. Please, God, no. Patel met her eyes, urgency blazing. If we don't intervene immediately, you could lose him within minutes. For a split second, the hallway spun around Maddie. The sterile lights, the beeping machines, the sharp scent of antiseptic, everything blurred into a dizzying haze. Baby C, her tiniest fighter. The one who had struggled since the moment he'd entered the world. The one she whispered to every hour, telling him he was strong enough. Now he was slipping away. Take me to him, she choked, gripping the wheelchair armrests as Everett guided her forward. Dr. Patel led the charge, pushing open the NICU doors. Inside, baby C was surrounded by a flurry of medical staff. His tiny limbs were pale, his breathing shallow, his oxygen levels plummeting on the monitor. We've tried CPAP, supplemental oxygen, and thermal regulation, Patel said urgently. Nothing is stabilizing him. Maddie's voice cracked. What else can we do? Patel hesitated, a terrible hesitation. There is one more option, she said quietly. But it is dangerous. Thank you. Maddie's blood ran cold. Dangerous? How? It's an emergency thoracic drain. His lung hasn't fully collapsed, but fluid is rapidly building. If we don't release the pressure— Patel didn't finish the sentence. Maddie understood anyway. What are his chances? She whispered. Patel exhaled with intervention around 60%. Without it, close to zero. Zero. The word ripped through her like a blade. Nick stepped closer, his face splotched with anger and desperation. You can't keep approving risky treatments. One son has barely survived. You want to gamble with another? Maddie turned raw, fury sharp in her voice. I am not gambling. I am saving them. No. Nick spat. You're trying to look like a hero for the cameras." Harold stepped between them. "Mr. Barlow, you have no authority here anymore." Nick's laugh was bitter and hollow. "You think I care about legal authority? Those are my sons." End quote. "They were your responsibility," Maddie said, eyes burning, "and you failed them every step of the way. Now, let me do what you wouldn't." He opened his mouth to argue, but Serena tugged his sleeve, whispering urgently, "Nick, stop. You're making this worse." He pulled away, but the fight in him faltered. "Doctor," Patel turned back to Maddie. "We need your consent now." Maddie's legs trembled. Her heart pounded. She pressed her forehead to the incubator glass. "Baby C," she whispered, voice breaking. "Fight for me. Fight for your brothers. Fight because you came into this world so brave." Everett knelt beside her. "Malene, you're the strongest person I've ever seen." She swallowed hard. "I'm not, but they are." She turned to Patel. "Do it. Perform the thoracic drain." Patel didn't hesitate. "Prep the equipment. Clear the area. Move the incubator gently." Machines rolled into place. Nurses secured baby C, their movements efficient but urgent. Maddie gripped Everett's hand tightly, watching every detail, every shadow crossing Patel's face. Inside the incubator, Patel inserted the needle slowly, carefully into the fragile space between baby C's tiny ribs. A horrible moment of stillness. Then a sudden rush of air and fluid exited the drainage tube. Baby C's chest fluttered, then rose again, more evenly. His oxygen saturation blinked upward, yellow then green. He was breathing. Maddie collapsed forward, sobs breaking loose from a place she had locked away all night. Everett wrapped his arms around her shoulders as relief washed over her in waves. Patel turned toward her, eyes softening. He pulled through. All three of them. They're fighters. Malene. Maddie could barely speak. Thank you. But before the relief could settle, Harold's phone buzzed again, this time violently. He looked at the screen and his face drained of color. Everett frowned. "Harold, what is it?" Harold lifted his gaze, voice low and grave. "It's the Roe Vanguard board. They've called an emergency vote to remove Malene as heir." For the first time that night, Maddie felt something colder than fear run through her. A sharp ancestral chill that seemed to whisper from every corner of her father's legacy. "The board wants to remove me," she said quietly. "How is that even possible?" Harold closed his laptop slowly, his expression carved with concern. "They're invoking Clause 14B, an emergency provision, allowing them to vote the heir out if they believe she poses a threat to the stability of the Roe Empire." Everett scoffed. "She just saved 3 premature infants and activated a protocol they forced her to acknowledge. Threat? They should be thanking her. They don't care about gratitude," Harold said. "They care about power." Nick crossed his arms with a smug smirk. Well, guess Daddy's little princess wasn't as untouchable as she thought." Maddie turned toward him, exhausted, but sharp. "This board wouldn't be doing this unless someone pushed them." Nick didn't answer, but his eyes flicked for a split second toward Serena. Serena swallowed hard, looking away. A heavy realization hit Maddie. "You contacted them." Nick shrugged with feigned innocence. "I simply told them their ace is in a hospital having a meltdown. Emotional instability, irrational decisions, a threat to the dynasty." Then he added, voice dripping with venom. "Seems like they agreed." Rage burned through her, a quiet, simmering fire. "You're trying to destroy me because you can't control me anymore." Nick stepped toward her, lowering his voice. "I don't need to control you. I just need to make sure you never control me." Before Everett could intervene, Harold's tablet chimed. He opened the live feed. On screen appeared the Roe Vanguard board, 15 of the most powerful financial leaders in the country. Their expressions were stern, assessing, clinical. The chairwoman addressed her without ceremony. "Miss Roe, this meeting concerns your status as heir. We believe your recent actions may compromise the stability of the Roe Empire. You have 5 minutes to defend your position." 5 minutes, after a night of blood loss, heartache, battles in boardrooms and operating rooms. 5 minutes to protect a legacy she never asked for but now needed to survive. Everett knelt beside her wheelchair. "Malene, you're stronger than they know. You survived a life they could never live," Harold whispered. "Just speak truth. Your father believed in you. Remind them why." Maddie lifted her chin as the camera light blinked on. "I'm not here to defend my worth to you," she began, voice trembling but resolute. I'm here because my children almost died tonight because the man I married lied about his medical history, blocked their surgeries, and tried to take custody while I was fighting to breathe. Some board members shifted uncomfortably. I didn't activate Protocol Orion for power, she continued. I activated it to protect my sons. The Rowe legacy isn't just money or influence, it's responsibility. My father taught me that. Her voice steadied. And I am honoring that responsibility in the hardest moment of my life. A long silence, then whispered murmurs across the tiles. The chairwoman leaned forward. We will vote now. Harold squeezed her shoulder. Everett took her hand. The tension was suffocating. One by one, board members cast their votes in favor of removal. Against removal, against. In favor, against. Against. The tally swung back and forth, each vote hitting like a physical blow. Maddie felt her heartbeat in her fingertips. Her breath tightened as the final vote approached. The chairwoman looked into the camera. The deciding vote is mine, she said. And I vote. A nurse burst into the hallway at full speed, cutting her off. Malene, baby A's situation has changed again. You need to come now. Maddie's heart stopped. The chairwoman narrowed her eyes at the sudden chaos. And then the nurse added the words that froze the entire hallway. Your son is asking for skin-to-skin contact immediately. It could save his life. If you make press, the hallway snapped into motion the moment the nurse spoke. Skin-to-skin contact. The simplest, oldest, most human intervention in existence. And suddenly it held the power to tip baby A's fate. Maddie didn't hesitate. Take me to him now. Everett moved behind her, pushing her wheelchair as Harold closed the laptop. The board meeting forgotten. Even the chairwoman's voice called faintly from the device. Miss Rowe, the vote, Miss Rowe. But it no longer mattered. Her child mattered. They rushed back into the NICU where baby A lay trembling under the dim blue phototherapy lights. His breaths were shallow, his oxygen levels unstable. A respiratory therapist adjusted his tubing anxiously. Dr. Patel approached, urgency written across her face. His heart rate is erratic. He's exhausted. Sometimes the only thing that resets a this fragile is direct maternal contact. Maddie nodded, hands already fumbling with the ties of her hospital gown. Tell me what to do. Thanks for watching. Patel guided her gently. We'll place him on your bare chest, right over your heart. Your warmth, your heartbeat, those signals can stabilize him, but you must stay completely still. Anything, Maddie whispered. Just give him to me. Two nurses lifted baby A with surgical precision. He was so small, so heartbreakingly small that she feared he might disappear into her hands. But the moment his fragile body touched her skin, something electric passed between them. Not magic, not miracle connection. His tiny fist flexed against her collarbone. His cheek pressed faintly into her chest and then a single deeper breath, followed by another. The monitor beeped, then steadied. Patel exhaled a breath she'd been holding for too long. He's responding. Maddie closed her eyes, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. That's it, sweetheart. I'm here. Mommy's here. Come back to me. Everett stood nearby, awed. I've never seen anything like that. Harold softened. This is why your father trusted you. You lead with heart, not ego. But Nick ruined the moment with a harsh laugh. Oh, please. This is all sentimental nonsense. One good breath and you all act like she's a hero. She abandoned her board meeting. Harold turned sharply. Children first, legacy second. That is the Rowe way. Nick scoffed. The Rowe way ruined my life. No, Everett replied coldly. You did that yourself. Before Nick could snap back, Dr. Patel spoke again. Malene, keep breathing deeply. He's syncing his rhythm with yours. Baby A's tiny chest rose and fell against her skin, growing steadier, stronger. Maddie rested her cheek on his head, letting her tears fall into his soft blanket. He's so warm, she whispered. That warmth is saving him, Patel said. Don't stop. Minutes passed. Long, fragile, beautiful minutes. Eventually, baby A's numbers for the first time since birth stayed in the safe zone. He's stable, Patel announced. Maddie didn't fully collapse, but her body sagged with relief. Everett steadied her shoulders, his touch grounding. Then Harold's tablet pinged again. Everyone tensed. Is that the board? Everett asked. Yes, Harold said grimly. They resumed the vote while you were here. Maddie swallowed hard. Did they decide? Harold stared at the screen, reading, absorbing, weighing each word. Finally, he looked up. Well, Maddie whispered. Am I still the heir? Harold took a breath. After reviewing your activation of protocol, Orion, your defense, and your actions tonight, his expression shifted, part shock, part disbelief. The board didn't just keep you as heir. They voted to appoint you as the new chairwoman of Roe Vanguard Holdings, effective immediately. For a moment, Maddie forgot how to breathe. Chairwoman. They named her chairwoman. Not acting heir, not temporary custodian, not a placeholder, until the dynasty found a more suitable candidate. Chairwoman of Roe Vanguard Holdings, one of the most powerful financial institutions in America. Harold repeated it gently, as though giving her time to absorb it. Effective immediately, Miss Roe. You are now the highest authority within the entire Roe empire. The words felt unreal, distant, like they were trying to land on a heart too exhausted to hold them. A few hours ago, she had been a woman bleeding on an operating table, abandoned by her husband, terrified of losing her babies. Now she had the power to reshape the world that had once suffocated her. Everett knelt beside her, a soft smile warming his features. Malene, you earned this. Not because of a name, but because of who you've been tonight. She met his eyes, her voice trembling. I didn't want power. No, Everett said softly. You wanted safety. You wanted your children alive. Power just came when you chose courage. In the corner of the NICU, Nick let out a strangled scoff. This is ridiculous. A hormonal mess of a woman becoming the head of a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. This is a joke. Harold didn't even look at him. Security will remove Mr. Barlow after the medical team clears the NICU. His access badge has already been deactivated. Nick's face contorted anger, fear, disbelief colliding in real time. You can't do this to me. I built my company from nothing. And then, Harold replied calmly, you nearly let your children die. Actions have consequences. Serena, who had been shrinking little by little into the shadows, finally stepped away from Nick's side, silently, carefully, distancing herself from the sinking ship she once tried to steer. But Maddie wasn't thinking about revenge or victory. She looked down at baby A, sleeping against her chest, steadier now, breath sinking with hers. His warmth, his heartbeat, his fragile grip on life, anchoring her more powerfully than any boardroom title ever could. Patel approached with a soft smile. He's stabilizing. You did everything right, Maddie. A tear slipped down her cheek. I just want them safe. And they will be, Patel said. All three of them. You've given them every chance. For the first time since childbirth, hope felt real. Then Harold cleared his throat. As chairwoman, you now control all Rwanded entities, including Barlow Genomics. Would you like to issue any immediate directives? Maddie looked at Nick, who suddenly seemed so small, shrunken. Not by size, but by truth. The truth of who he'd been, what he'd done, the harm he caused, the danger he brought. She inhaled slow and steady. Yes, she said. I want a full investigation into every financial, medical, and ethical violation Nicholas Barlow committed. Nick blanched. Maddie, please. And she continued, her voice clear as glass. Initiate proceedings to permanently bar him from holding any executive or leadership position in any Roe-affiliated entity ever. Nick stumbled backward, eyes widening as the reality hit him like a physical blow. You're destroying me. No, Maddie said quietly. You destroyed yourself. I'm just ending the damage. Silence thickened the air. But before anyone could speak again, the NICU door slid open. A nurse hurried in, her face bright, not with panic this time, but something lighter. Malene, she said breathlessly. Baby C. He's waking up and he's responding to your voice. Maddie gasped, covering her mouth. Everett smiled wide. Go to him. Harold nodded. Your first act as chairwoman should be one your father would respect. She rose from her wheelchair with Everett's support, heart pounding not with fear, but with overwhelming gratitude. She stepped toward baby C's station, and then a shadow moved at the end of the hallway. A figure she hadn't seen in years. Her breath caught. Malene, the man said softly. It's me, your brother. For a long moment, Maddie could only stare at the man standing at the end of the NICU hallway. The world seemed to slow, the sounds around her dimming into a quiet hum. The man's eyes, warm, familiar, and shining with unshed emotion, were unmistakable. "Daniel," she whispered. Her older brother, the person she believed dead, the person she mourned for years after the helicopter crash that took their parents. He stepped closer, his voice trembling. "I've wanted to come back sooner, but it wasn't safe. Father arranged protections. I couldn't reveal myself until Protocol Orion activated. Until you were ready." Emotions stormed through her. Shock, disbelief, joy, grief, every piece of her heart colliding at once. "You were alive this whole time." Daniel nodded, eyes misting. "Father knew the Roe Empire had enemies. He hid me to protect the lineage, and he made me promise not to return until you stepped into your place." Everett moved beside her, stunned. Harold bowed his head respectfully. Even Nick froze, realizing the weight of the legacy he had underestimated. Daniel stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her, mindful of her fragile body. Maddie collapsed against him, sobbing freely. "You should have been here," she cried. "I needed you." "I know," Daniel whispered. "And I am here now, because you finally claimed the life you were born to lead." When they parted, Baby C whimpered softly from his incubator. Maddie rushed toward him, Daniel, following closely. His tiny fingers stretched toward her voice, responding instantly. "He knows you," Daniel murmured. "He feels you." Maddie placed her hand on the incubator, voice barely a breath. "Mommy's here, sweetheart." Patel approached with a relieved smile. "He's stabilizing beautifully. All 3 boys are against impossible odds pulling through." Maddie let out a trembling laugh, joy breaking through her exhaustion. "Thank you for saving them." Patel nodded. "No, Malene, you saved them. Your strength did." Behind them, security approached Nick. "Mr. Barlow, you're required to leave the NICU immediately." Nick looked around wildly. "No, you can't do this. I'm their father." Daniel stepped forward, gaze icy. "A father protects. You endangered. That is why you're being removed." Nick's face twisted. "Everything I did for my company. And now," Maddie said calmly, "you no longer have one." Her voice carried a quiet, devastating finality. Security escorted Nick away as he shouted empty threats that no longer had power. Serena slipped out behind him, slipping off her hospital badge, trying to disappear before the consequences caught up to her. Harold approached Maddie. "As this moment, there are many decisions awaiting you when you're ready." "I know," she said softly. "But right now, all I want is this moment." Everett smiled gently. "You deserve it." Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. "Our family is whole again, Maddie, in a new way." She looked around the NICU, the soft glow of machines, the steady beeping of recovering hearts, the 3 tiny miracles who had fought so fiercely. For the first time since the birth, she felt something settle inside her. Peace. She glanced at Everett, steady, loyal, quietly strong. He had been there through every terrifying moment, never wavering. "Everett," she whispered. He stepped closer. "Yes." Her eyes softened. "Don't go far. I want you in our lives. In their lives." His breath hitched. "There is nowhere else I would rather be," Everett said. Daniel smiled as he looked around the NICU. "It seems the Roe legacy has more than one new beginning." Maddie turned toward her 3 newborn sons. They were tiny, fragile, and surrounded by machines, but they had survived the impossible. Only hours earlier, Nicholas had treated them like complications threatening his company. Now they were the reason Maddie understood exactly what she was fighting for. With Everett, Harold, and Daniel standing beside her, she no longer felt abandoned. She was a mother, the new chairwoman of the Roe legacy, and a woman finally strong enough to decide what her future would become. Maddie placed her hand against the incubator and watched one of her sons curl his fingers. "This is the life I choose," she whispered. "A life where my children are loved, protected, and never treated like burdens." Everett gently rested his hand on her shoulder. Maddie looked at him and realized that Nicholas had not destroyed her family. He had only revealed who truly belonged in it. Then the NICU doors opened. A nurse entered holding a clipboard, uncertainty in her eyes. "Chairwoman Roe," she said carefully, "there is a man downstairs asking to see you. He claims he was your father's closest friend." Maddie frowned. "What is his name?" The nurse hesitated before answering. Everett Langford Sr.? The room fell silent. Maddie slowly turned toward Everett. The warmth disappeared from his expression, replaced by unmistakable shock. Her marriage had ended. Her children were safe. Her father's company had been reclaimed. But as the mysterious visitor waited downstairs, Maddie realized the truth about the Rowe family and the secrets surrounding her father's death were only beginning to surface.